Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel. Tonight, we're stepping into one of the most misunderstood places on Earth, the desert, a world that many imagine as empty, silent, and still. But beneath that wide sky, and across those shifting sands, life is unfolding in ways that are both astonishing and unexpected. Here, survival is not about strength alone. It is about timing, patience, and remarkable adaptation. Creatures move when the heat allows. Seeds wait for years, sometimes decades, for a single moment of rain. Entire ecosystems appear and disappear in the space of a day, shaped by forces that feel almost invisible. Deserts are not just hot and dry. Some are cold, some are ancient beyond imagination, and some hold stories of oceans, forests, and climates long gone. Every surface, every shadow, every brief drop of water becomes part of the delicate balance that supports life against the odds. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is settle in. Let your shoulders relax. Let your breathing slow. And allow your mind to settle into stillness as we explore this remarkable world of desert life together. Let's begin. Deserts can look empty, yet they are crowded with hidden life. At first glance, a desert can seem almost blank. There is open ground, hard light, scattered rock, and long stretches where nothing appears to move at all. But that impression is deeply misleading. Under the sand, inside burrows, beneath stones, and within the tissues of thorny plants, life is packed into every available shelter. Ants move through tiny tunnels below the heat. Lizards waiting shadow until the right moment to emerge. Owls sleep in underground hollows. Seeds, spores, eggs, and resting insects lie hidden in the soil, ready for a shift in temperature or a touch of rain. Even the spaces between grains can hold microbes that help bind the surface together. What looks silent is often simply concealed. Desert life does not announce itself loudly. It survives by staying out of sight, and once you understand that, the whole landscape changes from emptiness into a world of secrets. Some deserts bloom overnight after rain that falls for the first time in years. A desert can wait in stillness for so long that it seems nothing could ever change there. Then, one storm arrives, perhaps after years of dryness, and the ground answers with astonishing speed. Seeds that have slept through heat, wind, and darkness suddenly wake. Within days, and sometimes even faster, plains that looked bare become crowded with color. Tiny annual flowers rise from nowhere, spread across whole valleys, and turn dusty ground into a living carpet. In places like the Atacama or parts of the American Southwest, these rare blooming events can be so dramatic that they seem unreal. The plants do not have time to waste. They germinate, grow, flower, attract pollinators, and set seed in a brief rush before the moisture disappears. It is one of the most astonishing transformations in nature. A place that seemed lifeless reveals it was only waiting, holding an entire hidden season just beneath the surface. In the driest deserts, animals survive without ever drinking water. For many desert animals, open water is so rare that depending on it would be fatal. Instead, their bodies solve the problem internally. Kangaroo rats are one of the most remarkable examples. They can live on dry seeds alone because their bodies extract moisture during digestion, creating metabolic water as food is broken down. Their kidneys are so efficient that almost no liquid is wasted, and their urine becomes astonishingly concentrated. Some insects and reptiles rely on moisture from prey or plant material. while others limit water loss by resting through the hottest part of the day and emerging only when conditions are cooler. Breathing, movement, and even the timing of activity are part of the water budget. In such places, survival is not about finding a pond. It is about living so precisely that a pond is unnecessary. That is what makes desert animals so extraordinary. They do not merely endure scarcity, they are built around it. Desert nights can turn freezing only hours after brutal daytime heat. One of the great shocks of desert life is how quickly the world can change after sunset. Daytime heat can be punishing, yet once the sun drops, warmth escapes with surprising speed. Dry air holds far less heat than humid air, and cloudless skies allow the ground to radiate that heat back into space. The result is a place where afternoon can feel furnace-like, and midnight can feel bitterly cold. For animals, this creates a second challenge beyond thirst. It is not enough to survive heat. They must also be ready for sharp night chill. Many species solve this by retreating into burrows where temperatures remain steadier than the surface. Others rely on thick fur, sheltered resting spots, or carefully timed activity. Even plants are shaped by this swing between extremes. Desert life is often imagined as a battle with heat alone, but that misses half the story. In many deserts, survival depends on enduring two climates every single day. The Sahara was once green enough for hippos to swim there. Today, the Sahara is the largest hot desert on Earth, yet it has not always looked this way. Thousands of years ago, large parts of it were grasslands, lakes, and river systems shaped by a wetter climate. Rock art scattered across the region shows animals that seem almost impossible by modern desert standards, including hippos, crocodiles, giraffes, and cattle. These are not fantasies. They are traces of a time when monsoon patterns shifted northward and transformed the landscape into something far greener. Human communities fished, hunted, and lived beside water that has long since vanished. Then, the climate changed again. The rains weakened, lakes shrank, vegetation retreated, and the vast dry belt returned. That older Sahara matters because it reminds us deserts are not fixed forever. They have histories, and those histories can be dramatic. The sand seas we know today cover the memory of another world, one where reeds grew and heavy animals moved through open water. Tiny desert seeds can sleep for decades, waiting for one storm. Some of the most impressive desert survivors are not running, burrowing, or hunting. They are doing almost nothing at all. Buried in the soil are seeds that can remain dormant for astonishing lengths of time, protected by hard coats and careful chemistry that prevents them from sprouting too soon. A brief drizzle is not enough. In many species, the signals must be just right. Enough moisture must soak the ground, temperatures must cooperate, and sometimes even the timing of the season matters. Only then does the seed break its long silence. This caution is essential because a false start could kill the young plant before it has any chance to reproduce. So the seed waits, sometimes for years and in some cases far longer, storing possibility in a form small enough to vanish into dust. That patience is one of the great powers of desert life. In a harsh world, sometimes the winning strategy is simply not to wake too early. Camels survive heat so extreme it would overwhelm many mammals. Camels are often treated as symbols of the desert, but the real story is more impressive than the image. They are not just animals that tolerate heat. They are specialists in conserving water and managing temperature with unusual precision. A camel can allow its body temperature to rise far more than most mammals would safely permit, which means it does not need to sweat as quickly. That saves enormous amounts of water. Its red blood cells are shaped in a way that helps them keep flowing even when the body is dehydrated, and the thick coat that looks as though it should trap heat actually helps block solar gain from above. The hump does not store water, but fat, which can be used as energy when food is scarce. Even the nostrils help recover moisture during breathing. Taken together, these features make the camel feel almost engineered for survival. It is not a simple beast of burden. It is one of evolution's finest desert designs. Some desert lizards run so fast they barely touch sand. In the open desert, the ground itself can become an enemy. Sand and exposed rock may grow hot enough to burn delicate tissues, and wide stretches of bare terrain leave small animals visible to predators. Some lizards meet both dangers with speed. Species such as the zebra-tailed lizard can sprint across the surface with astonishing quickness, lifting the body high and keeping contact light and brief. The movement looks almost effortless, as though the animal is skimming rather than running. Speed is not just about escape. It is also about crossing dangerous ground before heat builds in the feet and limbs. Many desert lizards also combine that quickness with sudden stillness, freezing against the background when motion would reveal them. Their bodies are tuned for bursts, sharp turns, and precise timing. Watching one dash across sunlit sand can change the way you think about the desert. It stops seeming like a static landscape and becomes a racetrack where survival is measured in fractions of seconds. Fog can keep a desert alive even where rain almost never falls. Not all desert moisture arrives as rain. In some coastal deserts, fog drifts inland from cold ocean currents and becomes the difference between life and death. The Namib is one of the clearest examples. There, the air can carry moisture across land that receives very little rainfall, and living things have evolved to capture it with remarkable creativity. Some beetles climb dunes and angle their bodies so droplets condense and run toward the mouth. Certain plants use fine surfaces, hairs, or leaf structures to collect moisture from the passing mist. In these places, the sky may offer water without ever delivering a storm. That changes the whole logic of the ecosystem. Life no longer depends only on rain falling from above. It depends on intercepting water while it is still suspended in air. This gives the desert a different kind of rhythm, one built on dawn fog, drifting vapor, and tiny droplets that may never become a puddle, yet still sustain an entire world. Life in the desert depends on timing more than strength. Desert survival is often imagined as a contest of toughness, but timing may be the more important power. The difference between life and death can depend on when an animal moves, when a flower opens, when a seed wakes, or when a predator begins to hunt. Many creatures wait until dusk or dawn, not because they are weak, but because those brief windows offer cooler air and lower risk. Some flowers open only at night, matching the arrival of moths or bats. Burrowing animals may emerge for minutes rather than hours. Even reproduction can be timed to rare bursts of food and moisture, so that young arrive only when the land can support them. In the desert, acting at the wrong moment can waste water, energy, or opportunity that cannot be replaced. This is what makes the ecosystem so fascinating. It runs on clocks you cannot always see. Beneath the stillness is a world of perfect timing, where success belongs to those that move at exactly the right moment. Kangaroo rats make water inside their bodies from dry seeds. A kangaroo rat can spend its whole life in country so dry that standing water is almost never part of the story. Instead of drinking, it relies on chemistry. As dry seeds are broken down inside the body, hydrogen in the food combines with oxygen during metabolism and produces water from within. That alone is astonishing, but the animal goes further. Its kidneys are among the most efficient in the mammal world, reclaiming so much moisture that the waste left behind becomes intensely concentrated. Even breathing is managed carefully to reduce loss. By day, the animal stays sheltered in cool burrows. By night, it emerges to gather seeds and store them in chambers underground, where humidity can rise enough to help preserve them. It is a small animal living by invisible arithmetic, balancing every drop with extraordinary precision. In the desert, that hidden water factory is not a trick. It is the foundation of an entire life. The Namib Desert may be older than most deserts on Earth. Many deserts come and go over long stretches of climate history, but the Namib appears to have endured for an astonishingly long time. Some researchers believe parts of it have remained dry for tens of millions of years, which would make it one of the oldest deserts on Earth. That kind of age changes everything. It means life there has had vast spans of time to adapt, specialize, and become strange in ways younger landscapes have not yet allowed. Beetles, plants, reptiles, and mammals have all been shaped by a place where drought is not a passing phase, but the rule written into deep time. The dunes themselves are part of the drama, flowing inland from the Atlantic in great waves of sand that seem eternal and yet are always moving. When you stand in the Namib, you are not just seeing a desert. You are seeing a very old experiment in survival, one that has been running for longer than many mountain ranges have stood. Many desert animals stay underground while the sun rules above. When the surface becomes too bright, too hot, and too dangerous, the real desert shifts below ground. Burrows are not just holes for hiding. They are carefully chosen microclimates where temperature swings soften, humidity rises, and the risk of dehydration drops sharply. Rodents, reptiles, insects, spiders, and even birds may spend long hours or entire seasons underground, waiting for conditions to improve. Some dig their own shelters with impressive efficiency. Others borrow abandoned tunnels or expand existing spaces into chambers for nesting, storing food, or escaping predators. In many deserts, the busiest part of life is invisible from above because it happens in darkness under your feet. There, the world is cooler, steadier, and far more forgiving than the exposed surface. This hidden layer changes the meaning of the landscape. What seems open and empty from a distance can actually be underlain by a network of rooms, passages, and living neighborhoods built to outlast the sun. Cacti are not desert trees, but giant water-saving stem machines. A cactus can look simple from the outside, but its design is one of the most elegant solutions to drought on Earth. What appears to be a trunk is usually a swollen stem built to store water, carry out photosynthesis, and endure months of dryness without collapse. True leaves would lose too much moisture, so in most cacti, they have been transformed into spines. That shift changes the whole structure of the plant. The green stem becomes the main working surface, packed with water-storing tissue and protected by a skin that helps slow evaporation. Pleats or ribs allow expansion after rain and gradual contraction during drought, like a reservoir that can breathe. Some species also develop wide, shallow root systems that absorb sudden rainfall with astonishing speed before it disappears into the ground. A large cactus is not simply surviving in the desert. It is embodying desert logic, turning shape itself into a strategy for storing life through long absence. Some desert beetles harvest drinking water straight from morning fog. Along certain desert coasts, dawn can arrive not with rain, but with a thin, moving veil of fog. For some beetles, that mist is enough. In the Namib, species such as the fog-basking beetle climb dunes in the early morning and tilt their bodies into the airflow. Tiny droplets condense on the textured surface of the back, gathering until gravity pulls them downward toward the mouth. The insect does not chase water. It lets the air deliver it. That behavior is so efficient that it has inspired engineers trying to design better systems for collecting moisture in dry places. Yet the beetle achieved it long before human invention took notice. The beauty of the trick lies in its restraint. No struggle, no sprint, no search across miles of sand. Just posture, timing, and the right surface at the right hour. In a desert, even the faintest moisture can become enough if a creature has evolved to read the morning properly. Desert tortoises can spend most of their lives inside burrows. A desert tortoise may seem like a symbol of slowness, but its real genius is not movement. It is shelter. Across much of its life, this animal depends on burrows that protect it from lethal heat, cold nights, and long dry spells. Some of these underground retreats are shallow and temporary. Others are substantial tunnels dug into washes, slopes, or firm soil where temperatures stay far more stable than on the surface. Inside, the tortoise can rest through the fiercest parts of the year, conserving water and energy, while the outside world swings between extremes. When conditions improve, it emerges to feed on seasonal plants, flowers and grasses, then returns to safety. These burrows also become part of the wider desert community. Other animals may use them after the tortoise leaves or shelter nearby because of the cooler ground. So the tortoise is not just surviving in the desert. It is quietly engineering refuge within it. The Atacama is so dry some places almost never record rain. There are parts of the Atacama Desert where the idea of rain feels almost abstract. In some weather records, years pass with no measurable rainfall at all, and in the driest zones, even microbes struggle to persist. This extreme dryness is created by a remarkable combination of forces. Cold ocean water chills the air and suppresses rainfall. Mountain barriers block moist cisterns from reaching inland. High-pressure patterns keep the sky stubbornly clear. The result is a landscape so arid that salt, dust, and exposed ground can remain undisturbed for extraordinary lengths of time. Yet the Atacama is not lifeless. It holds specialized plants, insects, birds, and microbial communities adapted to conditions that push the edge of what life can tolerate. Scientists also study it as an analog for Mars because some of its soils and surfaces come close to extraterrestrial dryness. To stand in the Atacama is to meet an Earth landscape that feels almost beyond Earth. Desert foxes lose heat through ears that work like radiators. A desert fox does not need a huge body to survive heat. In fact, being small can help, especially when paired with one of the most distinctive cooling systems in the mammal world. The oversized ears of species like the fennec are filled with blood vessels close to the surface. As warm blood flows through them, heat can be released into the surrounding air, helping cool the animal without wasting precious water through heavy sweating. Those ears also sharpen hearing, which matters in a landscape where prey may be moving under sand or out in the darkness beyond sight. The result is a feature that solves more than one problem at once. It is a cooling device, a listening dish, and a symbol of how desert animals often use anatomy with impressive efficiency. What looks charming to us is actually serious equipment. In the desert, even the shape of an ear can be part of a life-saving system. A desert can be icy, windy, and still count as desert. The word desert often brings hot sand to mind, but heat is not the defining rule. A desert is created by dryness, not temperature. That means a place can be bitterly cold, blasted by wind, and still qualify if it receives very little precipitation. Cold deserts exist in high plateaus, polar regions, and rain shadow basins where moisture rarely arrives. In some of these places, snow may fall lightly and vanish into dry air. In others, frozen ground and sparse vegetation create stark landscapes that share the same basic challenge as hot deserts, which is lack of available water. Life there must solve drought in a different form, dealing with ice, fierce winds, and short growing seasons rather than burning afternoons. This wider definition changes how you see the planet. Deserts are not one style of place. They are a family of environments linked by scarcity, from sun-blasted dunes to frozen plains that look almost lunar. Antarctica is the largest desert on the planet. It sounds wrong at first because Antarctica is covered in ice, but by the scientific definition, it is a desert, and an immense one. Most of the continent receives very little precipitation each year, far less than many places people instantly recognize as deserts. The cold locks water away as ice, and the air is so dry that much of the interior is closer to a frozen wasteland than a snowy paradise. In some valleys, conditions are so severe that exposed ground can remain almost untouched by liquid water for extraordinary lengths of time. Yet even here, life finds a foothold. Microbes survive in rock, mosses persist where conditions allow, and coastal zones support rich webs of life fed by the surrounding ocean. Calling Antarctica a desert forces a useful shift in perspective. It reminds us that water abundance is not the same as water availability. A continent can hold most of the world's ice and still be defined by dryness. Many desert plants open their pores only after sunset. For a plant, breathing can be dangerously expensive in the desert. Tiny pores called stomata must open to let in carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, but every opening also allows water vapor to escape. Many desert plants solve this problem with a remarkable timing strategy known as CAM photosynthesis. Instead of opening their stomata in the daytime like most plants, they wait until night, when temperatures are lower and the air is often less demanding. Then they take in carbon dioxide and store it chemically until daylight returns. During the day, the pores stay mostly closed, while the plant uses what it captured earlier to continue making sugars. It is a biochemical night shift built around water economy. This is one reason succulents and many desert specialists can survive where other plants would quickly dry out. They do not fight the desert head-on. They rearrange the daily schedule of life itself to spend less with every breath. Some seeds germinate only when heat or fire breaks them open. In harsh landscapes, starting growth at the wrong moment can be fatal, so some plants use unusual signals to decide when to begin. Certain desert species keep their seeds sealed inside tough coatings that resist ordinary moisture. Heat from intense sun, seasonal extremes, or in some habitats the chemical aftermath of fire can weaken those barriers and finally allow water to enter. Only then does the seed awaken. This prevents a dangerous false start during conditions that are still too poor for survival. In places where fire occasionally resets scrubland, or where scorching temperatures mark the right season, the seed is not merely enduring the environment. It is reading it. The shell acts like a lock, and the landscape provides the key. That strategy can make a desert seem less random than it first appears. Beneath the dust are seeds waiting for very specific messages from the world above, holding back life until the odds improve enough to matter. Sidewinder snakes move in loops that keep most of body off sand. To cross loose, scorching sand, a sidewinder does not simply slither in the familiar way. Instead, it lifts much of its body clear of the surface and moves in a looping pattern that looks almost like controlled skipping. At any moment, only a small part of the snake touches the ground. That unusual motion helps in several ways. It reduces contact with hot sand, improves traction on unstable slopes, and allows the animal to move across dunes that might frustrate other snakes. The tracks it leaves behind are instantly recognizable, a chain of angled marks that seems to tell the story of motion. without ever resembling a straight line. The movement is so specialized that it feels almost mechanical, yet it is graceful when seen in action. Here is a creature that has not merely adapted to sand. It has invented a way of traveling that turns the whole body into a solution, step by step, without ever truly taking a step. Desert ants navigate with the sun, steps, and polarized light. A desert ant may leave its nest alone, wander across apparently featureless ground in search of food, and still return home by one of the most impressive navigation systems in the animal world. These ants track the position of the sun, detect patterns of polarized light in the sky that humans cannot see unaided, and count their own steps as they travel. Together, those cues form a kind of internal map. Even after winding routes through the heat, the ant can pivot and head back toward the nest with startling directness. In some experiments, when researchers subtly altered the length of the ant's legs, the return path changed because the insect's step counting had been thrown off. That finding is both amusing and extraordinary. It means the ant is not just wandering and hoping. It is measuring distance and direction with a precision that seems almost impossible in such a small brain. The desert is full of navigators, and some of the best are tiny. Some desert frogs wait underground for years between rainstorms. A frog seems like the last animal you would expect to find in a desert, yet some species have solved the problem of drought by spending astonishing lengths of time hidden beneath the ground. During dry years, they seal themselves in chambers, slow their metabolism, and remain in a state of suspended waiting known as estivation. Wrapped in moist soil and often enclosed in a protective cocoon made from shed skin, they conserve water and energy until the sound and vibration of heavy rain signal that the world above has changed. Then the transformation is sudden. The frogs emerge, feed, call, mate, and lay eggs in temporary pools that may last only days or weeks. Their entire visible life can be compressed into brief bursts between immense stretches of burial. That makes them feel almost mythical, as though they rise from the earth itself after storms. In truth, they are real and perfectly adapted to a landscape where patience must sometimes last years. The saguaro can store astonishing amounts of water after rain. A mature saguaro stands like a monument, but inside it is built more like a living system. After good rainfall, this giant cactus can absorb and store extraordinary quantities of water, swelling visibly as pleated ribs expand to accommodate the new reserve. The root system helps make this possible. It spreads broadly near the surface, ready to take in moisture quickly before the desert ground dries again. That captured water then supports the plant through long dry periods, fueling growth, flowering, and the production of fruit high above the desert floor. The plant's waxy skin helps conserve what it has stored, and its immense size gives it endurance that smaller species cannot match. A large saguaro is therefore not just a plant, but a standing archive of past rain. Birds nest in it, bats visit its blossoms, and countless desert lives intersect around its seasonal offerings. It becomes a tower of stalled weather rising slowly through the years. Desert varnish paints rocks with a dark skin over centuries. In many deserts, exposed rocks develop a dark, glossy coating that looks almost as though someone brushed them with thin brown or black lacquer. This phenomenon is called desert varnish, and it forms incredibly slowly. Over long spans of time, tiny amounts of clay, minerals, and compounds rich in manganese and iron accumulate on the rock surface, helped along by microorganisms and repeated cycles of moisture and candy. Drying. The result is a skin so gradual in its making that a human lifetime barely notices the change. Yet over centuries and millennia, entire boulders can darken. People across the ages have scratched images and symbols through that surface, creating rock art by revealing the lighter stone beneath. That makes the varnish both a geological curiosity and a cultural canvas. It gives the desert a sense of layered time. A rock is no longer just a rock. It becomes a record of chemistry, weather, microbes, and human presence all meeting on one patient surface. Some desert flowers smell like carrion to lure hungry flies. Not every flower courts pollinators with sweetness. In the desert, some species use a far stranger strategy. Their blooms release odors that resemble rotting flesh, dung, or other decaying matter, attracting flies and beetles that are searching for places to feed or lay eggs. To us, the smell can be unpleasant, but to the right insect, it is a powerful signal. Sometimes the trick goes further. The flower may be dark, fleshy, or hairy, reinforcing the illusion of something dead. When the visitor arrives and investigates, pollen is picked up or deposited and the plant's work is done. It is a remarkable example of deception used not for defense but for reproduction. In a place where pollinators may be scarce and opportunities brief, direct sweetness is not the only route to success. Some flowers survive by advertising a lie so convincing that insects cannot resist it. Even beauty in the desert can be built on something wonderfully unsettling. Meerkats survive deserts by turning teamwork into a survival tool. A meerkat standing upright in the desert looks almost comic, but the behavior behind that pose is serious and highly organized. These small mammals survive tough conditions through cooperation at nearly every level of daily life. While some forage for insects, small vertebrates, or roots, another individual may stand guard on a mound or termite structure, scanning for eagles, jackals, or snakes. Different alarm calls can signal different threats, allowing the group to react with speed and precision. They also share the burden of raising young, with adults helping feed, watch, and defend pups that are not always their own. Burrows become centers of safety, social life, and thermal relief from the heat. This cooperative structure allows the group to do more than any one animal could manage alone. In a desert, where danger is constant and conditions can change fast, teamwork becomes as practical as claws or teeth. The group itself is part of the survival equipment. Fennec foxes here prey moving beneath sand in darkness. When night settles over the dunes, the fennec fox becomes a hunter in a world where sight is only part of the story. Its enormous ears do more than release heat. They also capture faint sounds with extraordinary sensitivity, allowing the fox to detect movement from insects, rodents, and other small animals hidden under sand or tucked among roots and stones. In darkness, that ability can make the difference between wandering and feeding. The fox pauses, listens, and then strikes with quick digging or a sudden pounce, often finding prey that would seem invisible to us. Thick fur on the feet helps it move over hot ground and soft sand, while its pale coat blends beautifully with the desert at dawn and dusk. There is something almost magical about an animal locating life by sound alone in a landscape that seems empty. The desert night is full of whispers, and the fennec is one of the creatures best equipped to hear them. The Sonoran Desert has 2 rainy seasons instead of 1. Most deserts live by a single wet season, or by no dependable season at all. The Sonoran is different. It receives winter rain from Pacific systems, then later welcomes summer monsoon storms that roll in with heat, thunder, and sudden violence. That split calendar changes everything. Plants can leaf, bloom, or fruit at different times, and animals can spread breeding, feeding, and movement across more than one pulse of abundance. A winter annual may rise under cooler skies, while cacti and summer grasses respond months later to a completely different kind of moisture. Even the smell of the land changes between seasons. One rain is soft and soaking. The other may arrive in bursts, with lightning and rushing water. That double rhythm makes the Sonoran feel unusually alive for a desert. It does not rely on a single brief chance each year. It gets 2 invitations from the sky, and countless desert lives have evolved around both. Some desert fish survive in pools cut off for ages. It seems impossible that fish could belong in the desert, yet isolated desert waters hold some of the most extraordinary survivors on Earth. In a few springs, seeps, and remnant pools, fish populations have been cut off for thousands of years, stranded when wetter ages faded and rivers disappeared. What remained were fragments of ancient aquatic worlds, sealed in small habitats surrounded by heat and rock. Over time, these fish adapted to water levels that can rise and fall, to unusual chemistry, and to the simple fact of living in biological isolation. Some exist nowhere else on the planet, which means a single spring can hold an entire species. Their presence turns a pool into something much larger than it appears. It becomes a time capsule from a greener past. In the middle of dryness, these fish carry the memory of vanished waterways, continuing a line of life that should, by all appearances, have been lost. Desert owls often nest underground instead of in trees. When people picture an owl, they usually imagine a bird tucked into branches or perched in woodland darkness. In many deserts, the story is very different. Burrowing owls live and nest underground, often using tunnels dug by mammals such as prairie dogs, ground squirrels, or tortoises. From those entrances, they watch the open land with bright, alert faces, looking more like sentries than hidden forest hunters. The burrow gives them something a tree often cannot in a desert, which is a cool, protected chamber for eggs and young. It also places them close to insects, small reptiles, and rodents that move across the ground. These owls may stand at the entrance in broad daylight, bobbing, staring, and vanishing below in an instant when threatened. The image is unforgettable because it overturns expectation. Here is an owl that belongs not to branches and moonlit canopies, but to dust, tunnels, and the wide exposed architecture of the desert floor. A cactus spine can shade a plant as well as defend it. A cactus spine looks like a weapon, and in many cases, it certainly is. It helps discourage animals from biting into a body filled with precious stored water. But the spine does more than defend. In many species, it also helps regulate the plant's relationship with sunlight. Dense clusters of spines can cast fine shadows across the stem surface, reducing heating and helping the plant avoid some of the harshest stress of midday exposure. They can slow air movement close to the skin, which may reduce water loss. And in certain cases, they can even help catch dew or channel moisture. This means the fierce look of a cactus is partly a climate control system. What seems aggressive is also protective in a subtler way. The plant is using form to shape light itself, breaking the blaze of the desert into smaller, survivable pieces. Even a spine in the desert is rarely only one thing. Desert soils can look dead while hiding dormant eggs and spores. A stretch of desert ground can appear utterly still, yet beneath that crust lies a hidden archive of suspended life. Tiny invertebrates leave drought-resistant pegs in the soil. Fungi persist as spores. Microorganisms endure in resting states, waiting for the return of moisture. For long periods, nothing visible may happen at all. Then rain arrives, sometimes after months or years, and the silence breaks. Eggs hatch into small crustaceans or insects in temporary pools. Spores germinate. Microbial communities wake and begin cycling nutrients. What seemed barren reveals itself as a storage vault of future activity. This hidden layer is one reason desert change can feel so dramatic. The landscape is not starting from nothing after rain. It is unlocking reserves that were prepared long in advance. To kneel over desert soil is to look at a surface that conceals whole populations in waiting. The ground is not empty. It is simply paused. Termites build desert towers that control heat with remarkable precision. In some dry regions, termite mounds rise from the ground like sculpted chimneys, and their architecture is far more than accidental piling. These structures can regulate temperature, airflow, and humidity with impressive efficiency, protecting the colony and the fungal gardens some species cultivate inside. Built from soil, saliva, and relentless labor, the mound becomes a climate machine, powered by shape. Openings and internal passages influence how air moves through the structure as outside conditions change. Heat rising in one part can help pull cooler air through another. The walls can buffer extreme swings, holding the inner chambers within a narrower range than the desert outside. For a colony living under harsh skies, that control is everything. The mound is not just a home. It is survival transformed into engineering. When you see one standing above the plain, you are looking at architecture created by insects that have solved problems of ventilation and thermal balance without blueprints, tools, or any awareness of the astonishment. They inspire. Some desert grasses curl shut to survive scorching midday air. A blade of grass may seem too delicate for the desert, yet some species survive by changing shape when the day becomes dangerous. As heat rises and air dries, the leaves can roll or curl inward, reducing the exposed surface and helping protect the moist tissues inside. It is a small motion with major consequences. By narrowing the area exposed to sun and wind, the plant can reduce water loss during the most punishing hours. When conditions ease, the leaves may open again and continue capturing light. This makes the grass look almost responsive in an animal sense, though the motion comes from plant tissues reacting to water balance and internal tension. In effect, the plant folds itself into a more conservative form until the worst has passed. The strategy is elegant because it does not require escape. A rooted organism cannot run from noon, so it changes posture instead, turning survival into a controlled physical adjustment. Gila monsters can live for months on one large meal. A Gila monster moves with deliberate calm, as though it already knows rushing is unnecessary. In a sense, it does. This venomous desert lizard can feed heavily when the opportunity comes, often raiding nests for eggs or young animals, then live for astonishing lengths of time on what it has taken in. Fat reserves stored in the tail help carry it through lean periods, allowing the animal to remain active only when conditions and opportunity make sense. That strategy fits a world where food can be scattered and unreliable. Rather than chasing constant meals, the lizard is built for long intervals between them. Its venom is not mainly for dramatic attacks on large prey, but it remains a potent tool in a small, rugged hunter. Much of the time, though, the deeper marvel is its patience. The Gila monster embodies a desert principle that appears again and again, which is that survival often belongs to the animal that knows how to spend slowly. Desert elephants remember hidden water routes across enormous distances. In parts of Africa, desert-adapted elephants move through landscapes so dry and demanding that memory becomes a form of survival. These animals can travel vast distances between water sources, following routes shaped by generations of experience and led by individuals who remember where hidden springs, wells, or seasonal pools may still be found. That knowledge can determine whether a herd endures a harsh year or loses calves along the way. Their movements are not random wanderings across emptiness. They are informed journeys through a difficult map held in the mind. The elephants may dig into dry riverbeds to reach moisture beneath the surface, opening access that smaller animals later use as well. In that way, memory has consequences for the wider desert community. The image is extraordinary. A giant animal crossing a harsh land, guided not by signs we can see, but by remembered routes stored across years of movement. In the desert, knowledge itself can function like water. The Arabian oryx survives where shade can be painfully scarce. The Arabian oryx lives in a world where relief is often minimal, and the open ground seems to offer almost no mercy. Yet this pale antelope survives through a combination of behavior and physiology, finely tuned to heat and drought. Its light coat reflects much of the sun's radiation, reducing heat gain while it moves across exposed ground. It can allow body temperature to rise within safe limits, which helps conserve water by delaying the need for heavy cooling. It also times activity carefully, feeding when conditions are less punishing and resting when the land is at its harshest. The oryx does not need a lush refuge to endure. It carries part of its solution in color, timing, and internal control. That makes it one of the great large animal specialists of arid country. To see one standing on bare desert ground is to witness elegance under pressure, a creature built for places that look too bright and too empty to support grace. Some lizards lick moisture from their own eyelids. In the desert, no drop should be wasted, and some lizards treat even the moisture that gathers around their own eyes as worth reclaiming. Species such as the thorny devil and a few geckos can lick water from the eyelids or from skin surfaces where droplets collect, taking advantage of condensation, fog, dew, or even tiny amounts of moisture from peri. The body itself. For certain reptiles, channels between scales can help guide water toward the mouth, turning the skin into part of the drinking system. That means drinking does not always require a pool, a stream, or even a visible drop sitting still on the surface. The animal can gather what little the environment offers and recover it with precise movements. It is a beautifully intimate form of thrift. The desert teaches creatures to value moisture in small units, and these lizards have learned that the face itself can become part of the answer. When water is scarce, even an eyelid matters. Desert pupfish endure water saltier and hotter than most fish can survive. Desert pupfish live in waters that sound almost designed to exclude fish. Some pools and marsh remnants they inhabit can become startlingly hot, highly saline, and low in oxygen, especially as shallow water warms under relentless sun. Conditions that would kill many other species are tolerated by these small fish through robust physiology and a fierce ability to keep functioning when the margin for error is narrow. Their world may shrink, heat up, and grow more concentrated, yet they persist in habitats that can feel temporary and unforgiving. In some places, these fish are all that remain of much larger aquatic systems from wetter times. That gives them a strange double identity. They are both tough modern survivors and living relics of vanished landscapes. A desert pupfish is easy to overlook because of its size, but it represents one of the most extraordinary acts of endurance in vertebrate life, swimming where fish seem to have no business existing at all. Many desert birds cool themselves by fluttering the throat rapidly. Birds cannot sweat the way mammals do, so in desert heat, they must solve the cooling problem differently. One elegant method is gula fluttering, a rapid vibration of the thin tissues in the throat. With the beak open, the bird moves this area quickly to increase evaporation and release heat without the full muscular effort of heavy panting. It is an energy-wise solution for creatures that may already be facing high temperatures and limited water. You might see it in doves, nightjars, owls, and other desert birds during the hottest hours, a subtle motion that looks simple but carries serious physiological value. Some species also use shade, posture, wind position, and careful timing to avoid overheating. Yet the fluttering throat remains one of the most distinctive signs that the body is actively defending itself. In the desert, even a resting bird may be hard at work, using tiny, rapid movements to hold the edge against noon. The creosote bush can outlive entire human civilizations. A creosote bush does not look ancient in the way a giant tree does, yet some creosote colonies may be among the oldest living organisms in the desert. These plants can reproduce by cloning, sending up new stems around the edges as older central growth dies back, gradually forming large rings that endure across immense spans of time. One famous colony in the Mojave is thought to be many thousands of years old. That means a living creosote lineage may have already been established while early cities were just beginning elsewhere in the world. The bush is perfectly fitted to arid country, with small resin-coated leaves that smell unforgettable after rain. Its age gives that familiar desert scent another layer of meaning. You may be standing near a survivor whose living pattern has persisted through shifting climates, human empires, and countless seasons of drought. In a landscape often associated with barrenness, such longevity feels almost unbelievable, yet it is real. Some desert mushrooms appear, spread spores, and vanish in a day. Mushrooms belong so strongly to damp forests in the popular imagination, but their desert appearances can feel like a mirage. Yet after rare moisture, certain fungi can fruit with astonishing speed. Hidden networks in the soil seize the brief window, pushing up mushrooms that may emerge, mature, release spores, and collapse within a single day. The timing has to be perfect because the opportunity is brutally short. Heat rises, the air dries, and soft tissues lose their chance almost immediately. That is why these appearances can seem magical to anyone lucky enough to witness them. The desert floor, bare for months or years, suddenly hosts delicate structures that look as though they have no business being there. But the fungal body was present all along, waiting below as mycelium until conditions turned in its favor. The spectacle is brief, because it must be. In the desert, even fungi have learned that success often belongs to the fastest response. Rain in a desert can awaken whole food webs by dawn. When rain falls in a dryland system, the change is not limited to wet ground and fresh scent. Entire chains of life can begin moving almost at once. Seeds germinate. Insects emerge or hatch. Nectar appears in flowers. Herbivores arrive to browse on new shoots, and predators follow the stir of prey. By the next dawn, a landscape that seemed nearly motionless can be alive with feeding, mating, digging, calling, and dispersal. Temporary pools may host tiny swimmers. Birds shift routes to exploit the sudden bounty. Mammals intensify foraging because they know the window will close. This is one reason desert rain feels so dramatic. It is not merely weather. It is a release signal sent through many layers of the ecosystem at once. The speed of the response reveals how much life was already poised for activation. The desert does not build abundance slowly when the moment comes. It can ignite almost overnight into a rush of connected lives. Jerboas move like tiny kangaroos to save energy on open ground. A jerboa looks almost fantastical, with long hind legs, a balancing tail, and a body built for springing across open desert in great little arcs. This hopping style is not just charming. It is efficient. By moving in leaps rather than a constant scurry, the animal can cover ground quickly, escape predators with erratic changes in direction, and travel across loose surfaces without the same cost as a slower full-footed bee. Gait. The long tail acts like a counterweight, helping stabilize landings and turns. Many jerboas also avoid the heat by remaining hidden during the day, becoming active when darkness makes the desert safer and cooler. Under moonlight, their movement can resemble a miniature kangaroo's. Yet this is an independent solution shaped by similar problems in a very different part of the world. Evolution often repeats good ideas, and in the desert, one of the best ideas is to leave the ground in quick, economical bursts. Some desert spiders cartwheel downhill to escape danger. In the dunes of the Sahara and other sandy deserts, certain spiders have developed a form of escape so strange it feels invented. When threatened on a slope, the spider can flip its body and cartwheel downhill, using the angle of the dune to turn into a blur of legs and momentum. This is much faster than ordinary walking over loose sand and can carry the animal away from danger with startling speed. The movement looks almost playful to human eyes, but it is pure practicality. On unstable slopes, rolling can be the quickest route out of reach. Desert life often rewards unusual motion because normal motion is too slow, too costly, or too dangerous. The cartwheeling spider is a perfect example. It transforms the landscape itself into part of the escape, letting gravity do much of the work. Once again, the desert reveals that survival is not only about toughness, it is also about surprising solutions no one would predict. Desert locusts can transform from loners into vast flying swarms. For long stretches, a desert locust may live quietly in low numbers, behaving much like an ordinary grasshopper in a difficult landscape. Then, conditions shift. Rain produces vegetation, numbers rise, bodies jostle, and a profound biological change begins. Repeated contact triggers hormonal and neurological responses that alter color, behavior, and appetite. The insects become more active, more social, and more likely to gather. What was once a scattered population can turn into a mass-moving body, and when wings carry that change into the air, the scale becomes astonishing. Swarms can travel great distances and strip vegetation with frightening speed, turning local abundance into regional crisis. It is one of the most dramatic transformations in the insect world because the same species effectively changes character under crowding. The desert therefore contains not just hidden life and patient dormancy, but also the possibility of explosive multiplication. Under the right conditions, scarcity can flip into overwhelming motion across the sky. A burrow can be the difference between life and death by noon. By midday, desert surfaces can become so extreme that a few inches of depth may separate survivable conditions from lethal exposure. That is why a burrow is often more than shelter. It is a thermal boundary. Inside, temperature and humidity can differ enough from the surface to preserve water balance, reduce stress, and allow rest during the most dangerous hours. A rodent, reptile, insect, or spider that reaches its tunnel in time may endure the afternoon with little difficulty. One, left exposed, may overheat quickly, lose water, and die. This sharp contrast gives digging enormous importance across desert communities. Animals excavate their own retreats, inherit old ones, or modify cracks and cavities wherever they can. Some burrows become nurseries. Others are food stores, hunting stations, or seasonal refuges. In every case, they represent one of the core principles of desert living, which is that survival often depends on moving into another layer of the landscape before the sun peaks. Cactus wrens build nests inside thorny walls for protection. A cactus wren does not merely find shelter in the desert. It chooses a fortress. These birds often build their nests deep inside calla, prickly pear, or other thorny plants, where a predator must face a barrier of spines before it can even reach the entrance. The nest itself is a domed structure woven from grasses and plant fibers, with a side opening that adds another layer of defense. From the outside, it can look like a rough bundle caught among thorns, but inside, it becomes a carefully insulated chamber for eggs and chicks. The surrounding cactus also provides shade and a raised view over the land. In a place where exposure is dangerous, the bird turns one of the desert's harshest plants into architecture. That is part of what makes desert life so compelling. Even a small songbird does not simply endure the landscape. It recruits the landscape into its own survival plan. The camel's hump stores fat, not water. The hump is one of the most famous features in the animal world, yet it is often misunderstood. It does not slosh with water like a canteen on the camel's back. It stores fat, and that distinction matters. By concentrating fat in one place, the animal avoids spreading insulation evenly over the body, which could trap too much heat. The stored fat also functions as an energy reserve when food is scarce, allowing the camel to keep going through long stretches where vegetation is poor. When conditions are harsh, that reserve can shrink visibly. The hump may droop or reduce as the animal draws on it. Water is still managed brilliantly elsewhere in the body, through blood, kidneys, temperature regulation, and extraordinary tolerance of dehydration. The hump is simply one piece of a larger desert system. It is less like a water tank and more like a carefully placed backup supply, shaped by a life where scarcity is always close. Some desert plants make their own shade with pale hairs. In a desert, even sunlight itself can become a problem to solve. Some plants answer it not with larger leaves or deeper green, but with a pale coat of fine hairs spread across stems, leaves, or buds. These hairs can reflect part of the intense solar radiation, helping keep tissues cooler and reducing the strain of relentless exposure. They may also slow air movement close to the surface, which can help reduce water loss. The result is a plant that often appears silver, white, or softly dusty, even when perfectly healthy. To us, it may look ornamental. To the plant, it is a survival device. The pale surface changes how heat enters the body and how moisture escapes. In a landscape where shade is scarce, the plant manufactures a small measure of its own. That is one of the quiet marvels of desert botany. The plant does not wait for mercy from the environment. It alters the terms of exposure with its own body. Desert woodrats build stick fortresses that can last for centuries. A desert woodrat, often called a pack rat, builds a home that can become far more than shelter. It gathers sticks, cactus joints, bones, bits of plant fiber, and almost anything else it can drag back, creating a nest mound that may grow into a dense, spiny fortress. In arid climates, these middens can endure for astonishing lengths of time because dryness slows decay. Layer after layer accumulates, sometimes cemented by crystallized urine, until the structure becomes both a dwelling and a long-lasting archive. Scientists have studied ancient middens to learn what plants once grew nearby, what climates prevailed, and how desert ecosystems changed over thousands of years. So the woodrat is not merely building for comfort. Without intending to, it becomes a curator of environmental history. A messy pile of sticks in the desert may therefore hold the memory of lost vegetation, vanished weather, and landscapes older than many standing human monuments. Bare desert ground can hide a living crust of microbes. Some of the most important communities in the desert are easy to miss because they lie right underfoot and do not look alive at all. On the surface of apparently bare ground, a thin layer of cyanobacteria, algae, fungi, lichens, and mosses can bind soil particles together into a living skin. This crust may appear dark, rough, or slightly knobbled, but without knowing what to look for, it can seem like ordinary dirt. In reality, it is a community performing vital work. It can help stabilize the soil, influence how water moves after rain, and in some cases, add nutrients such as nitrogen to a nutrient-poor system. These microbial pioneers make harsh ground more habitable for other organisms. Their scale is small, yet their effect is wide. The discovery changes how you see a desert surface. What looked empty becomes occupied. What looked inert becomes biological. And every careful step begins to matter more than you first imagined. Biological soil crust helps hold desert landscapes in place. When wind moves across the desert, it can carry away loose particles with ease unless something helps anchor them. Biological soil crust does exactly that. The tiny organisms woven through the surface produce filaments, structures, and sticky substances that bind grains together, making the ground more resistant to erosion. Over time, this living layer can influence the shape of the land itself by helping keep soils where they are, instead of letting them blow or wash away. That matters for seeds, for water infiltration, and for the stability of whole plant communities. Without this fragile cover, a disturbed patch can become far more vulnerable to damage. A single track or careless step may seem trivial, yet recovery can take years or even decades in dry places where growth is slow. The beauty of this system lies in its hidden strength. Creatures too small to notice from standing height are helping hold the desert together, acting like living stitches across the skin of the earth. Some desert seeds sprout only after passing through an animal. For certain desert plants, germination begins with being eaten. Their seeds are swallowed along with fruit or fleshy plant tissue, carried through the digestive system of a bird, reptile, or mammal, and released elsewhere in dung. That journey can help in several ways. The tough seed coat may be scarified just enough to make water entry easier. The animal provides transport away from the parent plant, reducing competition. The dung itself can add nutrients and moisture-retaining material to the immediate surroundings. In a harsh environment, that combination can sharply improve the odds of a successful start. What seems like destruction becomes a delivery system. The plant's future passes through the gut of another creature and emerges with better chances than before. This is one more reason desert ecosystems feel so interconnected. A feeding animal is not only taking energy from the plant, it may also be performing the next step in the plant's life cycle, carrying tomorrow's growth inside its body. The ocotillo can leaf out within days of rainfall. For long stretches, an ocotillo may look almost skeletal, a cluster of tall, thorny canes rising from the ground with very little green to suggest active growth. Then rain arrives, and the transformation can be startlingly fast. Small leaves appear along the stems within days, taking advantage of the brief availability of moisture. This quick response allows the plant to capture sunlight and begin photosynthesizing during windows that may not last long. When the ground dries again, the leaves can be shed just as readily, reducing water loss and returning the plant to its spare, stick-like form. What is remarkable is not only the speed of change, but the willingness to repeat it. An ocotillo may leaf out and drop leaves multiple times in a year if rainfall pulses come and go. That makes it one of the great opportunists of the desert. It does not commit to one long season. It answers each storm as though it might be enough. Desert bighorn sheep climb cliffs to escape heat and predators. A desert bighorn sheep belongs to steep country in a way that can seem almost improbable. Where slopes look too abrupt for safe footing, these animals move with controlled confidence, placing their hooves on narrow ledges and broken rock with astonishing accuracy. The cliffs serve more than one purpose. They offer escape routes from predators such as mountain lions, and they often provide cooler conditions, breeze, or shaded faces during hot parts of the day. Height can mean survival. The sheep's specialized hooves grip rough surfaces, while muscular bodies and keen balance let them climb terrain that would defeat many larger animals. The image is unforgettable because it combines grace with urgency. A herd may appear peaceful one moment, then flow uphill in a coordinated rush that seems to ignore gravity. In the desert, the mountain wall is not a barrier. It is refuge. And the bighorn survives by treating sheer stone not as danger, but as familiar ground. Some scorpions glow blue-green under ultraviolet light. Walk through the desert at night with an ultraviolet lamp, and the ground may suddenly reveal small living lanterns. Scorpions fluoresce, glowing blue-green because compounds in their outer covering absorb ultraviolet light and re-emit it at visible wavelengths. The effect is so dramatic that a creature almost invisible by day can look eerily radiant in darkness. Scientists still debate the full purpose of the fluorescence. It may help the scorpion sense light levels, or it may simply be a byproduct of the chemistry of the cuticle. Whatever the reason, the phenomenon has changed the way researchers and naturalists find these animals at night. Under ordinary light, a scorpion can vanish into the landscape. Under ultraviolet, it announces itself instantly. That contrast feels almost magical. Here is a predator built for secrecy, yet carrying a hidden glow that appears only under the right kind of illumination. The desert is full of such surprises, where ordinary-looking creatures reveal extraordinary properties after sunset. Wind can sculpt desert stones until they look machine-carved. In the desert, wind is not only movement. Over enough time, it becomes a tool. Sand grains driven across exposed rock can grind, polish, and carve surfaces with remarkable precision, creating ventifacts, grooved stones, faceted boulders, and shapes so clean they can seem artificially cut. A single rock may develop flat faces and sharp angles where abrasive winds have attacked from favored directions again and again. Elsewhere, the carving is softer, turning stone into smooth forms that resemble sculpture. What makes these objects so fascinating is their quiet authorship. No hands shaped them. No chisel struck them. Air and sand, repeated over years and centuries, performed the work. In a place where wind often seems invisible until it lifts dust, these stones become evidence that motion has a memory. They record the direction, persistence, and force of the desert atmosphere. To hold one is to hold a landscape's long patience, written into angles and polished surfaces by moving air. Desert rivers may flow only briefly, yet shape entire ecosystems. A desert river can spend much of the year as a dry channel, a broad ribbon of sand and gravel that looks abandoned by water. Yet when rain falls upstream, sometimes far beyond the visible horizon, that channel can come alive and transform the surrounding land. These ephemeral rivers, called washes, wadis, or arroyos in different regions, carry pulses of water that recharge soils, move seeds, deposit sediments, and create corridors of fertility through otherwise harsh country. Trees and shrubs often cluster along them because roots can reach deeper moisture there. Animals travel them, feed beside them, and use them as routes across the landscape. Even when dry, the riverbed still matters because it marks where water will someday move again. That possibility shapes the whole ecosystem. In the desert, permanence is not required for importance. A river does not need to flow every day to become the organizing line of life across a broad and difficult terrain. Flash floods can roar through land that seemed dry moments before. One of the great deceptions of the desert is how safe a dry channel can look just before it becomes dangerous. A storm may be falling far away, perhaps beyond hills or out of sight entirely, while the wash nearby remains sunlit and empty. Then a surge arrives. Water rushes down the channel with astonishing speed, carrying mud, branches, stones, and force enough to overturn vehicles or tear through campgrounds. Because the ground is often hard and dry, rainfall does not always soak in quickly, which can increase runoff and make the flood pulse sudden and violent. The drama lies in the contrast. A place that appeared dead and stable reveals hidden connection to distant weather. In the desert, danger does not always build gradually where you can see it. It may appear all at once, sent from another part of the landscape by gravity and storm. That is why desert channels deserve respect, even when they seem completely empty. Some desert snails seal themselves shut and wait out drought. A snail seems almost absurdly delicate for desert life, yet some species survive by becoming masters of stillness. When conditions turn too dry, they seal the shell opening with a barrier of dried mucus, sometimes strengthened into a temporary door that helps reduce water loss. Then they wait. Metabolism slows, activity stops, and the animal can remain in that guarded state for long periods, until humidity rises or rain returns. On rocks, stems, or shaded surfaces, clusters of dormant snails may cling like small pale beads, each one withdrawn into an architecture of patience. Their survival depends not on speed, strength, or deep burrowing, but on sealing the body away from the hostile air. It is a striking reminder that desert adaptation is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is the art of doing almost nothing without dying. The shell becomes a chamber of suspended time, allowing a creature associated with moisture to endure astonishing dryness. The camelthorn survives by sending roots astonishingly deep underground. In parts of Africa and the Middle East, camelthorn trees and shrubs survive where the surface tells very little of the water below. Their secret lies underground. These plants can send roots to astonishing depths in search of hidden moisture, following fractures, soil layers, and faint reserves that shallower-rooted species can never reach. That access allows them to persist through dry periods that would defeat many neighbors, and it helps explain how a patch of green can stand in a place that appears otherwise unforgiving. The roots may tap groundwater or deep-stored soil moisture far beneath the heated upper layers. Above ground, the plant offers shade, forage, and structure in a sparse landscape. Below ground, it is performing an invisible feat of exploration. Desert survival is often imagined as coping with what is present at the surface, but camelthorn reveals another strategy entirely. Sometimes endurance comes from reaching into the hidden world beneath the drought. Desert dung beetles navigate by the glow of the Milky Way. On clear desert nights, the sky becomes part of the map. Some dung beetles, after shaping a ball from animal dung, climb on top of it and perform a kind of orientation dance before rolling away in a straight line. Experiments have shown that certain species can use celestial cues, including the broad glow of the Milky Way, to keep their course. That ability is astonishing because the beetle is not reading individual stars the way a human navigator might. It is responding to the structure of the night sky itself, using the luminous band overhead to avoid circling back into competition at the dung pile. The image is almost poetic, yet it is grounded in practical survival. The beetle needs to move quickly and directly before rivals steal its prize. In the desert, even waste becomes valuable food and breeding material, and even a humble insect may look upward for guidance. The heavens are not decoration. They are part of the root home. Pack rats preserve desert history in middens older than many ruins. A pack rat midden can begin as a simple nest area, but in arid country, it may become a layered time capsule of astonishing value. As pack rats gather twigs, seeds, leaves, cactus pieces, and other materials from the immediate area, they leave behind a record of the local plant community. In very dry conditions, those materials can persist for thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of years, especially when crystallized urine helps cement and preserve them. Scientists studying ancient middens have reconstructed past climates, tracked shifts in vegetation, and learned how desert ecosystems responded to warming and cooling long before modern records existed. That means a small rodent, working only for its own survival, accidentally becomes one of the great archivists of dryland history. A midden tucked into a rock shelter may hold evidence older than many human cities. The desert remembers in unusual ways, and sometimes one of its finest memory banks is built by an animal no larger than a squirrel. Some desert birds time breeding to a single good rainstorm. In the desert, reproduction can be too costly to attempt on a fixed calendar. For some birds, the better strategy is to wait for rain and respond quickly when the land begins to offer food. A single good storm can trigger the growth of seeds, insects, and fresh plant matter that parents will need if chicks are to survive. Some species therefore delay nesting until conditions improve, then move with surprising speed. Courtship begins, nests appear, eggs are laid, and the whole breeding effort is compressed into the brief season of plenty. This timing is not simply convenient. It can be the difference between success and complete failure. Raise young too early, and the food is not there. Raise them too late, and the abundance has already vanished. That makes the birds highly attuned to weather and resource pulses. In a landscape of uncertainty, they do not trust dates. They trust the storm. The Joshua tree depends on one moth for pollination. The Joshua tree and the yucca moth are bound together in one of the most remarkable partnerships in the desert. The moth does not simply visit the flower by chance. The female actively gathers pollen, shapes it into a small ball, and deliberately places it on the flower's stigma so seeds can form. Then, she lays eggs inside the flower. When the seeds develop, her larvae feed on some of them, but not all. The relationship works because each partner gains enough without destroying the other. The tree gets pollination. The moth gets a nursery and food for its young. This is not a loose association. It is a highly specific bond shaped by long evolution, so close that the plant's future depends on the insect's behavior. The effect is extraordinary. A landscape famous for hardness and scarcity contains a relationship built on precision and mutual dependence. In the desert, survival is not always solitary. Sometimes it is a pact. Desert reptiles often change activity with the season, not just temperature. It is easy to assume a reptile simply responds to how hot or cold the moment feels, yet in the desert, many species follow broader seasonal patterns as well. Day length, food supply, breeding cycles, and the predictable arc of the year can all influence when a reptile is active, when it shelters, and when it shifts into a more dormant phase. A lizard that hunts openly in spring may become far more cautious in high summer. A snake may change not only its hours of movement, but its whole rhythm of life, as conditions alter across months. These shifts help the animal manage energy, water, and reproductive timing in a place where the environment does not challenge all year in the same way. The result is a calendar written into behavior. The desert is not one constant ordeal. It changes, and reptiles change with it. They are not merely responding to heat beneath their bellies. They are reading the season itself. Some cactus flowers open for only one night. Some cactus blooms live with astonishing urgency. A bud can spend days preparing in silence, swelling slowly on a stem that may look almost motionless, then open after dusk into a wide, luminous flower built for a single brief performance. By sunrise, or soon after, the show is already ending. This short schedule is not wasteful. It is highly targeted. Many of these flowers are pollinated by night-flying visitors such as moths or nectar-feeding bats. So opening after dark directs energy toward the hours when the right partners are on the move. The blossoms are often pale, strongly scented, and large enough to stand out in moonlight, almost like signals lit against the desert night. Their brevity makes them feel precious. Miss the timing, and you miss the event entirely. That is part of the fascination. In the desert, even beauty can be scheduled with remarkable precision, blooming for just long enough to accomplish its purpose. The roadrunner kills venomous prey by speed, timing, and force. The roadrunner is famous for speed, but what makes it truly impressive is how it uses speed as part of a larger hunting method. This bird can tackle dangerous prey, including scorpions, centipedes, and even small venomous snakes, not by reckless attack, but by a sequence of fast, controlled decisions. It darts in, avoids strikes, seizes with the bill, and may batter prey against the ground or a rock to weaken it before swallowing. The whole encounter can look almost theatrical, with bursts of motion followed by sudden stillness as the bird reassesses distance and timing. Long legs, sharp eyesight, and quick reactions give it the edge in the landscape where many hunters must move low and fast. The roadrunner is not merely a comic desert icon. It is a serious predator, built for hard country and dangerous meals. Watching one hunt reveals a bird that wins not with size, but with nerve and precision. Deserts can preserve footprints, fossils, and whole ancient landscapes. Dryness can destroy life quickly, but it can also preserve traces of life with extraordinary clarity. In deserts, whole surfaces may remain exposed for long periods. Sediment can harden without being erased by dense vegetation, and erosion may uncover old layers, like pages in a partly-opened book. That is why deserts have revealed dinosaur tracks, early human footprints, fossil skeletons, and even broad ancient landscapes whose contours still survive in stone. A dune field may preserve the frozen shape of winds that blew millions of years ago. A dry lake bed may hold the steps of animals that crossed mud and vanished into time. These places become archives because change happens in a particular way. The landscape does not hide everything under forest or constant soil building. It leaves evidence visible. To walk through a desert can therefore feel like walking across several eras at once, with the present stretched thin enough to let the distant past show through. Sand dunes can sing when avalanching grains vibrate together. In certain deserts, a slipping dune can produce a sound so strange that people once compared it to drums, humming wires, or an unseen aircraft. These are the so-called singing dunes. When a layer of dry sand begins to avalanche down a steep face, grains can move in enough synchrony to create deep, resonant vibrations that travel through the dune and out into the air. The resulting tone can be surprisingly loud and can linger after the motion begins, as though the dune itself has found a voice. Not every dune sings. Grain size, dryness, slope, and the right internal structure all seem to matter. That selectiveness makes the phenomenon feel even more mysterious. You are hearing not wind passing over rock, but moving sand organizing itself briefly into sound. The desert is often imagined as silent, yet here is an entire hillside capable of low music when gravity and grain motion align at the right moment. Some desert lakes appear briefly, then vanish back into salt. A desert basin can lie white and hard for years, looking more like a memory of water than a place where water might truly gather again. Then a rare sequence of rains arrives. Runoff pours inward from distant slopes, and the flat fills into a shallow temporary lake. For a short while, the surface reflects sky, birds arrive, insects breed, and the basin feels transformed. But the reprieve is brief. Under dry air and strong sun, the water shrinks, minerals concentrate, and the lake retreats until only salt remains behind. These places are both lake and not lake, alternating between mirror and crust, depending on the mood of the climate. That rhythm is one of the desert's great illusions. A landscape that seems permanently dead to water can suddenly hold it, then surrender it again without leaving much trace beyond the brighter surface. The basin becomes a stage for one of dryland life's most dramatic appearances and disappearances. The addax antelope can survive on moisture from plants alone. The addax belongs to some of the harshest reaches of the Sahara, where free water may be absent for immense stretches of time. Instead of depending on drinking, this pale antelope can obtain much of what it needs from the plants it eats, especially moisture held in leaves, shoots, and other sparse vegetation. It also avoids waste through behavior, seeking cooler hours and reducing unnecessary exertion under punishing conditions. Broad hooves help it move across soft sand, while its light coat reflects heat in open country. There is something almost ghostly about the animal, built for a place where presence itself must be economical. The addax shows that large mammals do not always need visible water sources if body design, timing, and diet are aligned well enough. That is part of the wonder of desert life. What seems impossible from a human point of view becomes ordinary for a species shaped by scarcity over countless generations. Desert horned lizards can squirt blood from their eyes. A horned lizard already looks unusual, with a flattened body, spikes, and a posture that seems halfway between reptile and thorny stone. Yet one of its strangest defenses is hidden until a moment of real threat. When grabbed or closely pursued by certain predators, especially canids, some species can force blood from small vessels near the eyes and spray it outward in a startling jet. The blood is not magical, but it is shocking. And for some attackers it may also taste or smell unpleasant enough to help drive them away. This tactic is used sparingly because it is costly, but in the right moment it can turn a capture attempt into confusion. The effect is unforgettable because it is so unexpected. Here is a small lizard that does not rely only on camouflage or fleeing. Under pressure, it can produce one of the most bizarre defensive displays in the animal kingdom, transforming surprise itself into protection. Some beetles stand on their heads to collect water. On foggy desert mornings, posture can become technology. Certain beetles climb to exposed positions and angle their bodies so the rear end is raised and the head points downward. This stance is not theatrical. It helps water condense on the surface of the body and run forward toward the mouth. Tiny differences in texture across the shell can encourage droplets to gather and move, turning fog into drinkable moisture without the need for rain, pools, or streams. The behavior is especially striking because it seems almost ceremonial when seen against a dune at dawn, a small insect facing the air in perfect alignment with the conditions of the day. Yet every part of it is practical. In the desert, water may arrive as mist rather than storm, and a creature that can harvest that faint gift gains an enormous advantage. The beetle's raised stance is a reminder that survival can depend on doing one small thing exactly right. Desert annuals live fast because slow lives are too risky. Some desert plants are not built for endurance across many seasons. They are built for sudden opportunity. Annuals can spend most of existence as seeds, waiting through long stretches of bad luck, then rush through germination, growth, flowering, and seed production in a single brief favorable period. Once moisture appears, there is no reason to be cautious. The soil may dry again soon, grazers may arrive, temperatures may rise, and the whole chance could vanish almost immediately. So the plant lives fast, converting a short window into a complete lifetime. This creates one of the most dramatic rhythms in desert ecology. A patch of ground that seemed inert becomes full of stems and flowers, only to return to apparent emptiness once the new seeds are set. The individual plant may be temporary, but the strategy is enduring. In a place where tomorrow cannot be trusted, speed becomes a form of wisdom written into the biology of a flower. The prickly pear stores water in pads built like reservoirs. A prickly pear pad may look simple, but it is a highly effective storage organ. Each flattened segment is a thick, succulent structure capable of holding large amounts of water in tissues designed to swell after rain and release that reserve slowly over time. The pad also carries out photosynthesis, which means one structure is doing multiple jobs at once, storing water, making food, and supporting future growth. Spines protect it from hungry animals and intense sun, while the outer skin helps slow moisture loss. Because the plant grows by adding new pads, an older individual can become a kind of linked system of reservoirs, each segment contributing to the survival of the whole. The effect is architectural. The plant is assembled from repeating tanks that feed flowers, fruit, roots, and future pads when the environment turns harsh. In the desert, abundance often cannot be left lying around. The prickly pear solves that by building its savings directly into its body. Shade in the desert can create a completely different microclimate. A few feet can make an astonishing difference in the desert. Step from open sun into the narrow shade of a rock face, shrub, cactus, or ledge, and the temperature, humidity, and even the movement of air can change enough to alter what kinds of life are possible there. Seeds may germinate more successfully in the protected soil. Insects may hide through midday. Reptiles may wait at the boundary between light and shadow, ready to move when conditions suit them. The shaded side of a boulder can preserve moisture and cooler ground, while the exposed side becomes punishing. These tiny differences create microclimates, small zones of opportunity nested inside a much harsher landscape. That means the desert is not one uniform environment. It is a mosaic of thermal pockets, brief shelters, and hidden gradients. A single shrub can therefore function almost like a miniature oasis, changing the rules of the immediate world for every small creature that knows how to use it. Some desert plants release chemicals that keep rivals from growing nearby. Not every desert plant is content to compete passively for scarce water and nutrients. Some appear to wage a subtler chemical battle. Through roots, decaying leaves, or other tissues, they release compounds into the surrounding soil that can suppress the germination or growth of nearby plants. This phenomenon, called allelopathy, helps reduce competition in a place where crowding could be deadly. Around certain shrubs, you may notice bare rings or strikingly sparse ground that cannot be explained by shade alone. The plant is not merely occupying space. It may be shaping who else is allowed to share it. That makes the desert feel even more strategic than it already seems. Water is scarce, soil resources are patchy, and survival sometimes requires controlling the neighborhood as well as your own tissues. A plant rooted in one spot still influences the world around it. In the desert, stillness should never be mistaken for passivity. Black desert rocks can become dangerously hotter than the air above. Air temperature tells only part of the desert story. Dark rocks exposed to full sun can absorb and hold so much radiation that their surfaces become far hotter than the surrounding air. Touch one at midday and the heat can be startling, even hazardous. For small animals, seeds, insects, and surface-dwelling microbes, that difference matters enormously. A lizard choosing where to bask or where to retreat is not only responding to the weather report in the air, but to the thermal landscape underfoot. Some dark stones become miniature furnaces, while lighter or shaded surfaces nearby remain usable. This creates a patchwork of danger and refuge, measured in inches. It also explains why many desert animals are so exact about timing and location. The world they inhabit is more thermally complex than it appears from standing height. A rock may look inert and ordinary, yet under the sun it can become an active force shaping movement, behavior, and survival. Burrowing spiders can line tunnels with silk to trap moisture. A spider's burrow is not always just a hole in the ground. In some desert species, it becomes a carefully finished chamber, with silk lining parts of the tunnel and helping create a more stable internal environment. The silk can strengthen the walls, reduce collapse, and in some cases help retain a slightly more favorable humidity than the surrounding soil alone would provide. That matters for an animal with a small body and a large surface area, where water loss can quickly become dangerous. The tunnel also gives the spider an ambush position. From just inside the entrance, it can sense vibrations, rush out for prey, and vanish again into the safety of the shaft. The engineering is subtle and easy to miss, yet highly effective. What appears to be a small patch of undisturbed dirt may conceal a structure that functions as trap, refuge, and moisture shelter at once. Desert life often hides its best designs below the threshold of casual notice. Desert rain smells powerful because dry soil releases long-stored compounds. The scent that rises when rain hits dry ground can feel almost emotional, and in the desert, it is often especially strong. Part of that smell comes from compounds produced by soil-dwelling microbes during dry periods, along with plant oils and other materials that accumulate on the ground and rocks. When raindrops strike, tiny air bubbles burst upward and carry those compounds into the air, releasing the fragrance we recognize as petrichor. In arid regions where dryness can last a long time, the buildup can make the first rainstorm smell vivid and unforgettable. For humans, it may signal relief, memory, or excitement. For the desert itself, it marks a shift from waiting to action. The scent arrives before many of the visible changes, almost like a warning that the landscape is about to wake. That is one reason it feels so powerful. It is not only pleasant, it is the smell of possibility returning to the ground. Some desert birds ride hot rising air to travel with little effort. The same heat that makes the desert punishing can also create one of the finest highways in the sky. As the ground warms unevenly, columns of rising air form and drift upward. Large birds such as vultures, eagles, and other soaring species can circle into these thermals, gaining height without flapping much at all. Once aloft, they glide toward the next column and climb again, crossing long distances with remarkable economy. In a landscape where food may be scattered and open ground offers little cover, this way of traveling is enormously useful. The bird is not fighting the heat below. It is harvesting the movement the heat creates. Watching one climb on invisible air above a desert plain can feel uncanny because the wings barely move while the body rises steadily higher. The desert is often described in terms of scarcity, yet here it is producing lift for free, and certain birds have learned to turn that physics into effortless travel. A single storm can rearrange an entire desert wash overnight. A desert wash may look stable for months or years, its channels set, its gravel bars fixed, its banks lined with familiar shrubs. Then one strong storm upstream can rewrite the whole scene in a matter of hours. Water charges through the wash carrying sediment, branches, stones, and sometimes whole sections of bank. Channels split or merge. Sand is scoured from one bend and heaped onto another. Seeds are moved, roots exposed, new bars built, and old paths erased. By morning, a place you thought you knew can be organized differently. This is one reason desert landscapes are both ancient and dynamic at once. Long, quiet periods are interrupted by rare events that do a tremendous amount of work very quickly. The wash is not a permanent arrangement of features. It is a temporary answer to the most recent flood. In the desert, one storm can function like a sculptor, editor, and demolition crew all in a single night. Desert mammals often have kidneys built for extreme water saving. For many desert mammals, survival depends on what happens after blood reaches the kidneys. These organs are exceptionally good at reclaiming water before waste leaves the body. The loops and filtering structures inside can produce urine so concentrated that very little fluid is lost, conserving moisture that would be wasted by less specialized animals. This capacity is one reason small rodents and other mammals can live in severe aridity while eating dry food and rarely or never drinking. The kidney becomes one of the quiet heroes of desert life, doing chemical work that turns scarcity into survivable routine. Its importance is easy to overlook because nothing dramatic is happening on the outside. Yet inside the body, every filtered drop matters. The desert rewards creatures that can spend water carefully, and the kidney is central to that budget. In some species, it is as essential to survival as a burrow, a cool hour of dusk, or a fortunate patch of seed. The thorny devil drinks through channels between its scales. The thorny devil of Australia looks like a creature assembled from spikes and angles, but one of its most remarkable features is far subtler than its intimidating outline. Between the scales runs a network of tiny channels that can move water across the skin by capillary action. Moisture from damp sand, dew, or even a shallow puddle can be drawn along these pathways toward the mouth, allowing the lizard to drink without needing to lower its head directly to a water source in the usual way. The system makes the whole body part of the drinking apparatus. That is astonishing enough on its own, but in a desert it becomes even more impressive because it allows the animal to exploit scarce and scattered moisture with great efficiency. The thorny devil is therefore not just armored against the environment. It is designed to gather from it in a highly specialized way. Even its skin behaves like a tool for survival. Some desert plants use waxy skins like built-in weatherproof coats. A desert plant loses water most easily across exposed surfaces, so many species protect themselves with a waxy outer coating that acts like a built-in weatherproof layer. This cuticle can reduce evaporation, reflect a measure of sunlight, and help shield tissues from drying winds that would otherwise draw moisture out with alarming speed. On some leaves or stems, the effect is visible as a bluish bloom or polished sheen. On others, it is harder to notice, yet just as important. The coating does not make the plant invincible, but it slows the constant leak that arid air would otherwise exploit. In a sense, the plant is wearing a protective finish all the time, one suited to glare, heat, and long periods without rain. Desert adaptation often seems dramatic when expressed as spines or giant storage stems, but sometimes it is this quieter kind of engineering that matters most. A thin surface layer making life possible day after day. Ancient people crossed deserts by reading stars, winds, and landforms. Long before modern maps, engines, or satellite signals, people crossed deserts by learning to read a landscape that seemed unreadable to outsiders. Stars gave direction at night. Prevailing winds shaped dunes in recognizable ways. Distant hills, rock outcrops, dry channels, and the color of ground all became signs within a larger mental map. Skilled travelers could notice subtle differences in sand texture, animal tracks, cloud behavior, and the arrangement of certain plants, then use them to judge where water, shelter, or a known route might lie. This knowledge was not casual. It was survival passed through generations, refined by memory, observation, and experience under unforgiving conditions. A desert crossing was never simply a matter of walking forward. It was an act of continuous interpretation. To move safely through such space required a mind trained to notice what others would miss. What looked empty to an untrained eye was, to an expert traveler, full of guidance. Oasis towns existed because hidden groundwater reached the surface. An oasis can feel almost miraculous when seen against open desert, but its existence is rooted in quiet geology rather than magic. Somewhere beneath the surface, water has traveled, pooled, or been trapped in ways that allow it to emerge through springs, seep upward through faults, or lie close enough to the surface for wells and roots to reach it. That hidden water changes everything. Trees can grow, crops can be cultivated, animals can be kept. Trade routes can stop, rest, and continue. Over time, entire towns formed around these reliable sources, becoming islands of human settlement in otherwise punishing country. Date palms often stood at the center, providing shade, food, and a layered agricultural system beneath them. The oasis was therefore not just a drinking place. It was a machine for making habitation possible. In the desert, where visible abundance is rare, a small emergence of underground water could alter history, drawing caravans, merchants, and communities into being. The Silk Road crossed deserts that could destroy careless caravans. The Silk Road is often imagined as a ribbon of trade linking great civilizations. But some of its hardest stretches crossed deserts where a mistake could become fatal very quickly. Caravans moved through regions such as the Taklamakan and other arid corridors where water was scarce, routes were uncertain, and exposure could ruin both people and animals. Sandstorms could erase tracks. Wells could be missed. Distances between safe stopping points mattered enormously. That danger is part of what made desert trade so remarkable. Silk, spices, metals, ideas, religions, and technologies passed through landscapes that offered almost no forgiveness to carelessness. Success depended on guides, timing, pack animals, local knowledge, and disciplined planning. The desert was not a blank space between cities. It was an active force shaping commerce. Every caravan that crossed did more than transport goods. It proved that human knowledge, cooperation, and endurance could thread paths through one of the hardest environments on Earth. Some desert caves shelter ice even in fiercely hot regions. It sounds contradictory, but ice can survive in desert caves where the world outside bakes under severe heat. The reason lies in how caves trap and protect cold air. In certain deep or shaded systems, winter chill sinks inward and becomes difficult to displace, while summer warmth struggles to penetrate the interior. If snow, seepage, or seasonal moisture enters under the right conditions, ice can accumulate and persist far longer than the surrounding climate would suggest. The result is a hidden pocket of another season, sealed inside rock beneath a hot landscape. Such caves can feel almost impossible when first encountered, as though the desert has folded frost into its own body and hidden it from the sun. They also remind us that deserts are not uniform at all depths. Beneath the harsh surface can lie chambers with entirely different thermal rules. In the desert, even the underground may hold surprises that seem to belong to another world entirely. Desert bats pollinate flowers that bloom after dark. When night falls in the desert, a second shift of life begins, and some of the most important workers arrive on silent wings. Nectar-feeding bats visit flowers that open after dark, carrying pollen from plant to plant as they hover or land to drink. These blooms are often pale, strongly scented, and wide enough to guide a fast-moving visitor in low light. For cacti and other desert plants, bats can be essential partners, linking scattered individuals across the landscape and allowing fruit and seeds to form. The relationship is elegant because the timing fits both participants perfectly. The plant avoids some of the heat and evaporation of daytime blooming, while the bat gains rich fuel in a place where food can be patchy. It is one more reminder that the desert is not only a daylight environment of glare and stillness. After sunset, pollination continues through the air, carried by mammals that turn darkness into a corridor of reproduction. The welwitschia grows only 2 leaves for its entire life, The welwitschia is one of the strangest plants on Earth, and it looks unlike almost anything else in the desert. It produces just 2 leaves in its entire lifetime, then never replaces them with a fresh set. Instead, those same leaves continue growing from the base year after year, while wind, sun, and abrasion tear their older portions into ribbons and strips. Over time, the plant can look like a tangled heap of weathered green and brown, more like wreckage than a living organism. Yet it remains very much alive, enduring for extraordinary spans of time in the Namib Desert. Its deep root, low profile, and ability to exploit scarce moisture help it survive where few large plants can. The plant feels ancient not only because of its age, but because its whole design seems to come from another botanical imagination. In a landscape already full of surprises, the welwitschia stands apart as one of the desert's strangest long-lived residents. Some desert shrubs can clone themselves into rings across open ground. From a distance, some desert shrubs appear as separate plants scattered across the plain. In reality, a few may be parts of one long-lived genetic individual spreading outward through time. As older central stems die and new growth continues around the edges, the clone expands into a ring or broad circular formation. What looks like many plants can therefore be one organism slowly enlarging itself across decades, centuries, or longer. These rings are fascinating because they turn open ground into a visible record of growth history. The empty center is not empty in the ordinary sense. It marks where life once stood and later withdrew, while the living edge advanced. In a harsh environment, cloning can be a powerful strategy, preserving successful genetics and allowing persistence through repeated cycles of stress. The desert often seems sparse and disconnected, yet these rings reveal continuity hidden in plain sight. A single shrub can become a long, unfolding shape written onto the land. Salt flats can form when vanished lakes leave minerals behind. A salt flat begins with water, even if the finished landscape looks like the opposite of water. In closed basins where rivers or runoff have no outlet to the sea, water collects and then evaporates, leaving dissolved minerals behind. Repeat that process over long periods, and the basin surface can become coated with salt, gypsum, and other evaporite minerals laid down in broad, pale sheets. What remains may look blindingly white, hard as pavement in places, and almost surreal under full sun. These flats are records of disappearance. They mark where lakes once stood, or where temporary waters repeatedly arrived and withdrew, each cycle adding a little more mineral to the exposed floor. Some become so smooth and level that they seem almost artificial, like unfinished floors stretching to the horizon. Yet every crusted expanse is the residue of old water chemistry. In the desert, even absence leaves structure behind, and vanished lakes continue to shape the land long after their surfaces are gone. Desert animals often survive by doing less, not more. In many environments, survival favors constant motion, fast growth, and relentless activity. In the desert, the wiser strategy is often restraint. Animals conserve energy by resting through heat, shortening foraging trips, lowering metabolism, or waiting out poor conditions rather than forcing action. A creature that moves too much in daylight may lose water faster than it can replace it. One that hunts at the wrong hour may gain little and spend too much. So desert survival often depends on carefully choosing when not to act. Burrows, stillness, and long pauses become tools as important as claws or speed. This can make desert life look sparse or lazy to a human observer, but the reality is more sophisticated. These animals are not inactive because they are incapable. They are economical because the environment punishes waste. In a land of limited margins, doing less can be a masterful decision. The desert rewards creatures that know when effort is worth the cost. In some deserts, survival depends on hearing rain from miles away. For certain desert animals, a distant storm is not just weather. It is an opportunity signal that must be detected quickly. Some species appear able to respond to low-frequency sounds, ground vibrations, changing humidity or pressure shifts, associated with rainfall occurring far away. Toads may emerge from hiding. Insects may prepare for breeding. Birds and mammals may begin moving toward areas where fresh growth or temporary water will soon appear. In such landscapes, waiting until the rain is visible nearby can mean arriving too late. Life moves toward the promise of moisture before the full transformation has even begun. This gives the desert an almost anticipatory quality. Creatures are tuned not only to what is happening at their feet, but to changes moving across the wider landscape beyond sight. A storm over distant hills can start a chain of motion somewhere else entirely. In the desert, hearing or sensing rain from afar may be the difference between merely surviving and thriving. The oldest known lizard tracks were preserved in ancient desert sands. Some of the oldest known footprints made by lizard-like reptiles were preserved in dunes and sandy surfaces that later turned to stone. That fact gives desert landscapes an extraordinary paleontological power. Under the right conditions, loose sand can record movement for a moment, then be buried, compacted, and preserved across immense spans of time. Millions of years later, erosion may reveal those steps again, as if an animal had just passed by. Tracks are especially compelling because they capture behavior, not just anatomy. They show how a creature moved, how far apart its steps were, whether it paused, changed direction, or crossed a slope. A skeleton tells you what an animal was. A track hints at what it was doing. In ancient desert rocks, these traces bring vanished worlds to life with unusual intimacy. You are not just seeing old bones. You are seeing a moment of travel preserved from a surface that no longer exists. Dust from deserts can fertilize forests an ocean away. A grain of desert dust seems trivial, but in the atmosphere, billions of such grains can become part of a planetary system of transport. Winds lift mineral-rich dust from arid regions and carry it across immense distances, sometimes over entire oceans. One of the most famous examples is dust from the Sahara reaching the Amazon, where it helps deliver phosphorus and other nutrients that support forest growth. This means a dry landscape can nourish a wet one, half a world away. The connection is astonishing because it joins two environments that seem opposite in character. The desert, often imagined as biologically poor, becomes a supplier to one of the richest ecosystems on Earth. It also reminds us that no landscape is truly isolated. Air links them. Material moves. A storm in one continent can influence soils on another. In that sense, the desert is not just a local environment. It is part of a global circulation system that quietly redistributes the raw ingredients of life. Some desert landscapes on Earth resemble parts of Mars. Certain deserts on Earth look so stark, dry, and geologically exposed that scientists study them as analogues for Mars. Places such as parts of the Atacama, Antarctic dry valleys, and other arid terrain can mimic aspects of Martian conditions, including extreme dryness, salty soils, intense radiation exposure, and sparse chema. Biological activity. Researchers test instruments there, practice rover operations, and examine how life persists at the edge of habitability. The resemblance is not exact, since Mars is colder, thinner-aired, and far more hostile. But the visual and chemical similarities can be striking. Walking across some of these Earth deserts can feel like stepping into rehearsal space for another planet. That makes desert study more than a matter of local ecology. It becomes part of astrobiology and planetary science. In the most severe drylands, Earth gives us a preview of alien terrain, allowing us to explore how life, geology, and weather interact where the margin for survival is extremely narrow. Desert crusts can take decades to recover from one careless footprint. A footprint in the desert may look temporary, but on certain living surfaces it can become a wound that lasts for years. Biological soil crusts grow slowly, especially where rainfall is infrequent and the season for recovery is short. When crushed by a boot, tire, or hoof, the delicate networks of organisms that bind the soil can be broken apart. Once damaged, the surface may become more vulnerable to erosion, poorer at holding moisture, and less supportive of germination. In some places, recovery can take decades, and in the harshest sites, even longer. That timescale changes the meaning of a single step. What feels insignificant in the moment may outlast the person who made it. The desert is often treated as empty land, able to absorb disturbance without consequence. But this is the opposite of the truth. Some of its most important systems are also its most fragile, and they keep the memory of careless passage far longer than we expect. Life in deserts is shaped by waiting, not constant growth. Many environments reward steady accumulation, constant feeding, and uninterrupted expansion. Deserts rarely offer that kind of reliability. Instead, life is often organized around intervals of waiting, broken by short periods of response. Seeds wait for rain. Animals wait for dusk. Predators wait near burrow mouths or water sources. Plants wait through dry months for the chance to leaf, bloom, or fruit. This rhythm makes desert ecosystems feel less like a continuous flow and more like a series of pulses. The pause is not empty time. It is part of the strategy. During those waiting periods, energy is conserved, tissues are protected, and possibilities are held in reserve. That is why sudden change can be so dramatic when it finally arrives. The life was already there, prepared and restrained. The desert teaches a different lesson about survival than many greener landscapes. Success does not always belong to what grows fastest. Often it belongs to what waits best. Even a small shrub can become a whole desert neighborhood. A single shrub in the desert can alter the immediate world enough to attract an entire community. Shade lowers surface temperatures. Fallen leaves add organic matter. Wind-blown seeds collect at the base. Insects find shelter in the branches. Lizards pause in the cooler soil nearby. Small mammals use the roots and cover for protection. Birds perch, forage, or nest. Over time, the plant becomes more than an individual organism. It becomes structure, refuge, and a focal point around which other lives arrange themselves. This is especially important in open ground where shelter is scarce and microclimates matter. One modest plant can create a patch of improved conditions large enough to influence who can survive nearby. That is why the desert should not be judged only by broad, empty spaces. Its real drama often happens around small centers of opportunity. Even a low shrub can function like a town square, drawing species together through the simple act of existing in a hard place. Some desert predators hunt by sensing vibrations through the ground. In a landscape where cover is sparse and prey often hides underground or moves at night, sound and vibration can carry precious information. Some desert predators exploit that with impressive sensitivity. Sidewinders, certain spiders, and other hunters can detect faint tremors moving through sand or soil, helping them locate prey they cannot yet see. A footstep, scratch, or shifting body becomes a signal. The predator reads the ground almost like an ear laid across the landscape. This makes sense in desert terrain where loose substrates transmit movement and where many animals survive by remaining hidden until the last moment. To hunt successfully, A predator must sometimes notice the prey before any visible clue appears. The result is a style of predation that feels almost supernatural to us. The hunter waits in stillness, then reacts with sudden certainty to something we would never have detected at all. In the desert, the ground itself becomes part of the conversation between hunter and hunted. A desert storm can erase trails and create new ones overnight. A well-known path across the desert can feel reliable until a storm proves otherwise. Wind can sweep over dunes and erase tracks completely, while heavy rain can carve fresh channels, reshape fans of sediment, and turn firm passage into mud, debris, or new obstacles by morning. Old crossings vanish. New routes appear where floodwater has cut a way through or laid down temporary easier ground. This constant potential for revision helped make desert travel so dependent on current knowledge rather than blind trust in memory alone. A trail in the desert is never quite permanent. It is an agreement between traveler and landscape that may be rewritten by one night of weather. That makes movement through dry lands both practical and poetic. The route exists, but only for now. Storms become editors of geography, removing yesterday's certainty and replacing it with a new arrangement. In the desert, the map is never fully finished. Many desert survivors are masters of stillness, not speed. Speed has its place in the desert, but many of the greatest survivors succeed by becoming almost invisible through stillness. A lizard pressed motionless against rock may avoid a predator's eye. An owl at a burrow entrance can wait without wasting energy. A spider near its trapline may remain perfectly calm until the right vibration arrives. Stillness saves water, reduces heat production, and often doubles as camouflage in a place where movement is easy to detect across open ground. It also reflects a deeper desert principle, which is that action should be precise, not constant. The animal that spends all day proving it can move may lose more than it gains. The one that waits well may live longer. This is part of why desert life can seem sparse to casual observers. Much of it is present but restrained, hidden in pauses rather than in obvious activity. In the desert, mastery often looks like patience held perfectly still. The desert is not lifeless at all, just exquisitely selective. The great misunderstanding about deserts is that they are empty failures of the natural world, places where life barely manages to cling on. The truth is more interesting. Deserts are selective. They admit only certain strategies, certain body plans, certain rhythms, and certain forms of patience. Anything careless is punished quickly. Anything efficient may flourish in ways that feel almost miraculous. This is why desert life can seem sparse from a distance yet astonishing up close. Every survivor has passed a difficult test written in heat, drought, timing, and exposure. Plants store water, hide surfaces, or wait as seeds. Animals listen for distant rain, move at precise hours, or vanish underground for months. Even microbes and crusts play roles that hold the landscape together. Once you understand that, the desert stops looking empty and begins looking refined. It is not a place where life is absent. It is a place where only the most beautifully adapted lives remain. As we come to the end of our journey through desert life, it's worth pausing for a moment to think about how much was hidden inside a place that can seem so bare at first glance. We've wandered through burning days and freezing nights, through dunes that can sing, flowers that bloom in darkness, seeds that wait for years, and animals that survive by timing their lives with astonishing precision. We've seen that deserts are not empty at all. They are full of patience, invention, and life shaped into its most disciplined forms. We've passed through fog-drenched coasts and ancient sand seas, past beetles gathering water from the air, foxes listening beneath the ground, birds riding rising heat, and plants storing whole seasons inside their stems. We've glimpsed vanished lakes, hidden springs, old caravan routes, and footprints from worlds so ancient they feel almost impossible to imagine. And through all of it, the desert has revealed itself not as a wasteland, but as one of the most remarkable places on Earth. Now, as the landscape begins to drift softly into the distance, let your thoughts do the same. Let the sand flatten into stillness. Let the wind grow softer. Let the stars rise above those open horizons, wide and unhurried. And if you're still awake, and you'd like to continue drifting with me, there'll be another video waiting for you on the screen. And if you've enjoyed this journey, you might leave a like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps more wandering minds find their way here, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, let your breathing slow. Let your body grow heavy, and let the vastness of the desert carry you the rest of the way into rest. Sleep well, and good night.